it's feeling more like spring. Who's happy about spring? Raise your hand. I know I am. It means more outside time with the littles and less indoor recess, which is like the worst thing ever. Welcome. It's Ashley here from Lovely Commotion, and I am sharing 3 spring STEM activities with you that we love to do every spring. It is super fun, and I'm going to kind of walk you through what we do as far as bringing some literacy into it as well. So you're going to want to grab a pen and paper because we are going to be talking STEM, and if you need some new ideas, I gotcha. So one that we love to do every year when it's rainy season is shaving cream rain clouds. And you may have seen this before. It's basically like raining in a cup, which is super fun. I'll pop a picture up here for you. This is one that we do. And when we do our STEM units, I like to bring in a guiding question, some new vocabulary, and some literacy with it, as well as a prompt. So I'll go through all of that. If you hear the fussing behind me, it's the puppies. They are wanting to play today, and they can't seem to leave me alone long enough. So they're here. I apologize if they're kind of noisy. They're having a fun time. So let's get into shaving cream and rain clouds. So my guiding question on this experiment is, can we make it rain in a cup? So that's always a fun guiding question because that's kind of the first thing that I pose to them. And it's kind of like, well, I don't know, can we? And so we love to bring basically any book about rain in, but this is just a fun one. The Rain Came Down by David Shannon. It's silly, and so they love that as well. But there are also some great nonfiction that kind of explain how the rain comes down, and we might touch on those too. So really just bringing in a book that ties into the experiment. And then I usually try to focus on 2 or 3 vocabulary words. And it's not a huge focus, but I like to have it in front of me so that I know I'm saying those words and really just maybe broadening that vocabulary. And sometimes we tend to think, kids they can't understand words that big. And we've learned that that's just not necessarily true. And whether it sticks or not doesn't really matter, but I'm offering it and I'm putting it out there. So our vocabulary words for this experiment are cloud, which many of them know and experience, but we talk about also like what is a cloud and the different kinds of clouds. Like we can talk about so much around clouds. And then precipitation. And we talk about that fancy word that the meteorologists, the weather people use when they're talking about rain, right? And so I also have some little vocabulary cards that I use as well. I didn't bring those, I apologize, but those are something you can find in my TPT store and my STEM challenges. They have the vocabulary cards in there as well. And then I like to give them a prompt because sometimes it's hard to get them into the experiment or the challenge when they aren't really 100% understanding. This one's a little bit easier because the guiding question being, can we make it rain in a cup, automatically kind of piques their interest. But I usually have some sort of prompt to go with it. And so this is the prompt. I'll read it for you. Have you ever thought about how rain forms? Where does rain come from? Why does it only rain some days and not others? Rain is a form of precipitation, and we remind them that means coming down out of the sky, right? We can learn about the process of rain by doing an experiment. Do you want to experiment with me? And so this usually gets them into, yes, let's see, how can we make this work? And so then what we do is we go on and move to the experiment itself. And so basically you just need a clear cup filled with water about an inch from the top. You can kind of see where the water stopped up there. And then what you're going to use for the cloud is shaving cream. So you're just going to put shaving cream on top of that water and it will sit up there. And then I like to take food coloring. We use blue just, because generally we think of rain as blue, but really it wouldn't matter at all. Just something colored so you can see it, and we start dripping that on to the shaving cream cloud. And so they each get a turn helping me drip it onto the cloud. And then as more food coloring sits on that shaving cream cloud, it gets heavier and eventually comes down through the water, and the water thinking of it as sky, you can see it just streaming down. This isn't the best picture of it, kind of hard to capture. It's a very beautiful thing to watch, but it gives them the idea of here's this cloud, and from it coming down is that precipitation, and then it all falls to the bottom, and we see that like we would here in puddles, right? Or it going into our water system. So maybe a little bit foreign concept, but they understand rain. They know what rain is. And so this definitely is relatable to them. So this is a fun one when it gets to be rainy season and it's constantly raining and you're saying, we can't go outside today because it's raining. This is kind of a fun one to bring in. Another one we love to do every year during our plant unit, and you've probably done this as a kid, right, is the thirsty celery, where it basically drinks up the celery. And so the guiding question for this experiment is, can we see a celery plant drink water? And they're like, drink water? That can't drink water. Or how do we know what do you mean it's going to drink water? So that gathers some excitement as well. And we like to read Exploring Stems because obviously the celery plant is a stem, and stems are what brings the water up with our plants. And so this is just a nice one to go through and talk about the stems specifically. And I found this one on Amazon, and I'll give you a closer look here at kind of what it looks like by Kristen Sterling. And it is about the only one I could find on just stems. And I love it because it talks about stems we eat. And so we can kind of go through that and look at stems that we actually eat, such as celery. And then do stems we see and how pandas eat stems and we can eat stems. And that stems are supporting our flowers, all kinds of great stuff. So this has been a great one to really just introduce the idea of what a stem is. It looks like on the back she also has some for exploring flowers, leaves, roots, and seeds. But stems is kind of the one that I think they understand, but they can't totally visualize because they can't see it, how that water goes up. And this experiment kind of fixes that. So our vocabulary for this experiment is a stem, obviously. Oh, excuse them. They're being extra noisy today. Stem, obviously, and a plant, right? And what makes a plant a plant. And so our prompt for this one, I just made these up and I just, kind of tried to relate it to something that maybe has happened to them and kind of get them kind of interested in what we're doing and the guiding question. So this prompt is, one day my mom gave me a celery for a snack. And we talk about, have you ever had celery before? It's a kind of vegetable. Many people put peanut butter on it. We talk about it. I noticed it looked a lot like a straw and I wondered if water could travel through it. Celery is a plant and I see tiny holes at the end where my mom cut it. I want to find out if water will go up this celery plant. Will you help me? And so that's when we fill a cup with water, maybe multiple cups, right? And we put food coloring in there so they get to help me decide what color do we want to use, and what if we didn't use food coloring, would we be able to see it? We might even try that. Might just do plain water, and then we might do a colored water. We might do multi different colors of water, see what happens. And you can cut off the top leaves if you like, because it kind of really gives you that as you can see. Oh yeah, I put the picture for you. As you can see in the picture, you can really see those straw-like structures. Or you can leave the leaf on there and watch what happens to the leaf at the end of the celery, and then maybe cut it off after it's sucked it up so you can see on the inside. Either way you do it, it'll work. But dark colors, I will say, do work best. So if you can steer them towards let's try maybe red, blue, or purple, those work best. Obviously yellow is pretty rough to see, and green obviously is too. We've done it and you can see it, just doesn't give quite the effect. And so you're going to cut off the end of the celery. So you're going to make sure that there's a fresh end, cut that off, put it in the water with the color, and wait about an hour or so. And then they can keep kind of coming over and observing it and watching it and seeing what happens. And so I like to make sure I'm doing this in the morning so that we can kind of check on it throughout the day. And then we can go back and talk about what happened. And wow, it did pull that water up. We know that because it's got blue at the top, and how it's feeding itself through that stem. So that's another great one that you probably did as a kid, but maybe it can be helpful to use the prompt or the guiding question of can we see celery plants drink water, using that vocabulary, really adding some more richness into our experiments as well. And the last one they absolutely love. It takes a little bit more on my end, but that's okay because it's worth it. It is a paper bag kite. And so our guiding question here is, can we make a kite using a paper bag? And, I found more and more that many of our kids have never even used a kite. And so this is exciting to them. Obviously, it's not a traditional kite because we're using a paper bag, but we kind of want to see what it will do with the wind. And so our vocabulary can be gravity and how it might fall to the ground. That's, I explain it to them as things that keep us on the ground. That's gravity. And when things fall from a table, it's hitting the floor because of gravity. Because they're going to find once they use their paper bag kite, if they're not running with it or it's not super windy, then it will fall to the ground. And then wind as well. And then we like to read a book about wind. This is a pretty good one. There's obviously lots of different books. I like this nonfiction one about why we need wind, kinds of winds. And, we may not read all of this in one setting, but it is helpful for them to see wind in action because it's hard to see wind, right? We just see the effects of wind, but this kind of talks about what pulls sailboats across the water, what rustles tree leaves. We know it's there and we can feel it. We just can't see it. And so we make a paper bag kite. And so I'm just going to show you because it's kind of tricky, but it works really well. If you got your paper bag, and so I allow them to decorate their paper bag however they want. We can add streamers because streamers are fun because they kind of float in the wind. Make it their own, make it theirs. Great process art projects. So you're kind of adding some art in there as well as a science experiment. And this one's a little bit longer, obviously, because you've got to make the kite and then go out and test it. And if you can use it on a day that is windy, that's the best, right? But it doesn't always happen like that, so they can still run with it. So basically, and I apologize if this is super loud, I open it up, and my part in this is cutting a hole right here in the middle of the bottom of the bag. And so I basically just do that for every kiddo because I don't want them trying to stab themselves or anything with with their scissors trying to make the point in the bag. And so I will just come in and just cut a little slit. I don't know if you can see that here. And so really all it needs is just like a little hole. Not too big, not too little. So then I give them their string, and I usually do about 2 to 3 feet. I don't want it so long that they're tripping over their kite, but obviously not too short that they can't get it in the air. So it's kind of a fine line. But here's the trick that works really well with these is using a popsicle stick. So what you're going to do is you're going to tie the string around the popsicle stick. And I do this part as well. My friends definitely struggle with tying, as I'm sure yours do too. So I just make sure to do this part for them ahead of time. And so I tie that in a couple knots there. So this is what I mean by more labor intensive on my part. And yes, it can slide off, but we're not worried about that. So we've tied it on to our stick. And so now we're going to take the other end right here. And sometimes they can do this with me. And they basically will come up from here. I'm going to get rid of this picture so you can see better. You're going to come up from the open side and basically stick your string up through. And sometimes I'll let them try this part. And so now your string's through and you're going to pull all the way until the stick. So you can see the stick. Now I want the stick to go inside the bag. So now my stick, I don't know if you can see it very well here, is inside the bag, okay? That way the string doesn't pull out and it makes it so much more sturdy. You will thank yourself if you take this step, because if you just put it through and like try to tape the string or like just try to rely on a knot, oh my goodness, like it will just rip because they run with them so hard, right? And so basically then they're ready. I usually have them decorate it before we add the stick and everything, but I will have them add their streamers last and taping them. We try to tape them either on the outside or the inside. And I really let them do the most of that. They're 4 or 5, so they can handle using the tape dispenser. We have, we have one available to them, so it's not foreign to them. You wouldn't have to have streamers. It just makes it a little bit more fun running in the wind. And so then, as you can see in this picture, they're taking their kite and they're running with it. And so we were able to talk about, like, if it's super windy, the wind blows the kite for you. But if it's not, we have to run with the kite. And once we stop running, it falls to the ground. And that's gravity, right? And so we're just bringing some of those ideas in there. Oh, I didn't read you the prompt. So the prompt that I used for this one is, it was a windy day, the perfect day to fly a kite. Can we go fly a kite, Mom? Asked Lily. We don't have a kite, Lily's mom said, but maybe you can make one. Lily's mom gave her a paper bag, string, craft stick, and some streamers. And together they worked to create a paper bag kite. Then they took it outside to see if it would fly. Do you want to make a kite just like Lily? And of course the answer is yes, right? How are we going to make this kite? And so we have the tools in front of us. And I kind of have to walk, obviously have to walk them through the part with the stick and the string. But they totally catch on to, this is our paper bag kite, and they decorate that and add their own streamers. And so then we test them out outside, and it gets them running, which is a big bonus, right? Burning off some of that energy. And we can talk about wind, and we can talk about gravity, and we can experiment with it. So that's a super fun spring one, because what's better in the spring than flying kites? And obviously that's not very feasible to fly regular kites with a whole bunch of young kids, but these work fantastic. Just make sure you put that stick on the inside and tie it on, and they will not be able to like rip that string out of there. So that is a super fun one that we do every year to bring in that science and that process art. So you're kind of knocking out two things with that, and then also getting them moving with the gross motor. So super awesome. But I wanted to show you, I apologize, my ringer's going off here. I wanted to show you that so that you kind of knew exactly how to assemble it. Also, if you're looking for vocabulary cards or prompts written out for you, or even more STEM experiments, I will drop a link to all my STEM resources in the Lovely Commotion TPT store, so that if there's something that maybe you want to try out, there are some ideas there for you. And all that's in there for you: some book ideas, the guiding question, the prompt, and actual vocabulary cards that have a picture to go along with them to kind of try to help solidify what that vocabulary word means. So I will leave that in there for you, and I would absolutely love it if you would share this video with a teacher friend that might want to do it with you or might enjoy it as well. And then also drop a comment and let us know if there are any STEM activities, science experiments, things that you do with your preschoolers in the spring that you just love to do year in year, because they are such a hit. We would love to hear them. Sharing is caring, friends. So have a great rest of your Sunday, and I hope you found this helpful and maybe kind of get you in the mood for doing some science and spring together. So have a great week. See you later.